correction is really hard for people to take. Plus, also, we live in a day and age where we want everything to feel good.
Yeah.
Like everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be happy. And we forget about, there's a lot of scripture that talks about us fellowshipping in the suffering.
Yeah.
And we're not really good at suffering.
We were part of 2 different churches with 2 different leaders, 2 different shepherds. And it was a very different experience. One, we walked away with just maybe some hurt and some baggage. And the other, we walked away better people because they loved us well, led us well, and challenged us and corrected us well. And it shaped us to be better, where the other one left us with some hurt. I want to just talk to the person that might be listening for a second, that you're in church hurt or you've come out of church hurt. You know, that's a hard place to be, and it can be a place that kind of closes you off and isolates you. And it's kind of like this protective mode of, I don't want to get hurt again.
Real talk about real life. Spiritual maturity. Faith. Leadership. Growth. Welcome to Life Beyond Sunday podcast.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Doing well.
You have a vacation coming up. You excited?
Yeah, but by the time this airs,
I know, that's true.
Vacation will
Maybe you'll have
pass.
another vacation coming up.
Yes, that's true.
So
It's a prophetic word.
Yes. No, I have a rule that I either have to have one like up and coming, or I have to be planning one.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
can't
like
be.
You get your vacation twice. When you plan it, you're excited, and then when you go on it, you're excited.
Exactly. I can't be in this lull of a moment where I don't know what's going on. So there you go. Prophetic word.
I'm
Take
with
it,
you,
run with
Kelly.
it. Okay. Shayla and I share travel passions. Okay. So we talked a little bit about getting to know your story, your background. You guys mentioned a little bit about like your charismatic background and you being in a church, thinking that you didn't really know, realizing that maybe that was an unhealthy situation.
Yeah.
And so you kind of transition out of that and you go to another church and you kind of find, you started at a conference, right? You're having all these experiences. People have to go back and listen. And then you go to a church and you're like, wow, this is a completely different environment.
Yeah.
And you're pastored completely different. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to start with, what is a pastor to you, right? So you've seen what it looks like for somebody to, in a moment of health, pour into you. What does that look like? And what do you see your role as today as a pastor?
I mean, I would say one of the words that is a biblical word, right, is a shepherd. Mm-hmm. And a shepherd, what does a shepherd do with his flock? He leads it, he guides it, he corrects it,
Feeds it.
He feeds it, he cares for it. It's like a shepherd is out there that's like going through the hair to make sure that there's no like mites, and like it's helping you be a healthy person, you know? And so I think that's what a good shepherd does, but it incorporates all of those things. You know, if a sheep is getting off, it's guiding that sheep back, you know? And so I think a good description would be a shepherd.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree, TJ?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a great book by Dr. Kevin Leman called
The Way of the Shepherd.
The Way of the Shepherd.
It's great.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
You should read it.
Everybody should read it.
I'll put it on my list. Actually, most of the books I read come from recommendations from you guys. So there you go. You mentioned something about correction that I thought was interesting, because I do think that we have a generation now that's afraid, or not afraid, doesn't like, or doesn't take correction well.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 aspects to church hurt, right? Which is one kind of goes into this is there's some messed up things that happened, right?
Yes.
And then there's this, maybe you just didn't like being corrected. Do you think that that's actually a challenge today? Why do you think there's a root challenge? Like, why?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a challenge today. And I think the root of all of it is, you know, we are growing up, and a lot of people have grown up in a fatherless generation. And really what a shepherd is it's a spiritual father. That, at least that's partly how I look at it. So you might say shepherd, I would say spiritual father. and we have a lot of spiritual brothers and spiritual sisters, and but a lot of people don't have spiritual fathers. And so what's happened is we've had bad experiences with earthly fathers. We've had bad experiences, a lot of women with men, a lot of men with men. So there's this underlying, I don't trust because I've never had anybody care. We come from a society with the majority of homes are broken. A lot of women raising families, and the man is absent. And then you come into a church environment and somebody is trying to father you. Somebody is trying to care for your soul, which is what the primary role of a pastor, a shepherd, a spiritual father is they're caring for your soul. And so when they're seeing things and they're trying to correct that because you've never had a good earthly father experience, immediately you think, well, they're trying to hurt me because I come from a broken place. They've always hurt me in my physical life, so they're trying to hurt me in my spiritual life. And I think that that's happening a lot today. And so correction is really hard for people to take. Plus also we live in a day and age where we want everything to feel good.
Yeah.
Like everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be happy. And we forget about, there's a lot of scripture that talks about us fellowshipping in the suffering.
Yeah.
And we're not really good at suffering.
Yeah.
Well, and I think just like in anything, right? There's good fathers and there's not so good fathers. There's good shepherds and then there's shepherds that don't care for their flock well. And so I think what we're seeing in a lot of churches and people coming from church hurt, like there can be two schools, right? Like there's a lot of people that have not been under a good shepherd, and there's been manipulation or there's been things that have happened that have caused that because that pastor, that shepherd was not really thinking about what's best for that person, but what was best for them. Like, how can you serve me? And how can you, and then that just puts so much pressure and puts bad taste in people's mouth because it's been somebody that has manipulated what that role should be. But then there are also good shepherds on the opposite side that love you, that care for you, that have invested in you. But then it gets to a place where I have to have a difficult conversation with you, and I hope that I've invested enough in you that you know that I love you, but I need to bring some correction in life. And a lot of times when we're corrected, we don't like it, and then we end up being hurt. But it really came from a good place.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Because that person's been pouring in. And
correct.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not been like for themselves, but it's been for the betterment of you.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that there are pastors that are manipulative in all those ways is because they haven't been fathered either.
Yep.
And so, unfortunately,
they're just doing what they've seen.
They're doing what they've seen, what they've experienced, and what they've known. And the reality is a lot of the reasons people go and start churches is because I'm in a bad experience. I don't like this, so I'm going to go do something different. The problem is they've never seen anything different modeled. So what do? It doesn't matter what you think. You always revert back to what you know. And so all you've known is manipulation and guilt and doing things for yourself. And so therefore, that's what you end up being, even though that's not what you desire to do.
I would say even in our story, I feel like, I don't want to put labels on things, but we were part of two different churches with two different leaders, two different shepherds. And it was a very different experience. One, we walked away with just maybe some hurt and some baggage. And the other, we walked away better people because they loved us well, led us well, and challenged us and corrected us well. And it shaped us to be better, where the other one left us with some hurt.
Right. That's interesting. What was, we're not trying to call anybody out, but like, what did you... When you went to this healthier relationship, what were you like, oh, wait, that's different? Like, was there an instance that you were like, that I never had that type of, thing before? What was kind of the starting point where you're like, that's different than what I came from?
Yeah, I think TJ could probably speak to that more.
I came out of the church that I worked at, and a lot of my church experience has been on staff. So I'm seeing it from a totally different vantage point than the average person that is just attending. If you think you're attending and you're in a place that is abusive or toxic or manipulative, wait till you're on staff in that environment. You get to experience it 1 day a week. They get to experience it 7 days a week. So you come out of an environment where, that's happening. And then I am a part of this church and where this pastor notices that I have an edge about my life. And because I have an edge, every conversation I'm in, I end up cutting somebody because hurt people.
Yeah.
So I'm hurting. And I remember he came to me and said, hey, I want to invest in you. What can I do to build confidence in your life? And I remember I told him, man, I want to know that you love me.
Yeah.
And
because before it was, I feel like you used.
Yeah, all I was is I just was used, like because I'm driven by accomplishment. I mean, that's my core motivation.
So you are an Enneagram 3?
I don't put a label on me.
Don't label it.
Don't label me. I'm a child of God. No.
Oh my God.
Here we go. He just doesn't want to admit that he's the same number as me. That's the problem. All right.
I'm lots of things.
Back to go ahead.
So, for the next year, he's my pastor, Pastor Randy Bizet, he just loved me unconditionally.
Yep.
And cared for my soul.
It was time.
And made the investment, and it was very easy then. I say easy. It wasn't easy for me, but it was easy then for him to be able to bring correction to my life. And I needed correction. And because I knew he loved me, while I didn't like it or enjoy it, I knew he was right. And I knew the things that he was calling out in me weren't to harm me, but they were to make me better.
To help.
Yeah. They were there to help me. It wasn't
for himself.
Yeah, he wasn't doing anything that was, at the end of the day, it was going to benefit him because I was going to be better. But at the end of the day, he just wanted me to be better.
Yeah.
And I knew that. I felt that. I trusted that. And I allowed that. And even to this day, I allow that. He's
still pastoring you.
He's still pastoring me. He's still, I'm very fortunate in life. I come from a broken home, but I have a great biological father. I have a great stepfather,
great spiritual father,
who is like a dad as well. And then I have a great spiritual father. So I come from an environment where I have great fathers. We just had an event with Pastor David Hughes from Church for the Glades, which is right down there. He's my big brother, but a lot of times he's speaking into my life. I have some incredible men that speak into my life and bring correction and challenge me because they want to see me better, and I trust that.
Yeah.
I think some of that too is you have to be willing and open to receive some of those things. I think a lot of people just have kind of walls up. And so when we have a wall up and there's been hurt, I think it's so easy to get hurt again because we're not open, to receiving something or allowing something. But that wall came down because somebody loved you.
Yeah.
And so I think there's seasons, especially coming out of when we've been hurt, is that we have to have a season where we just kind of receive and allow people to love and to pour into us to be able to break down that wall a little bit and allow ourselves that opportunity to again begin to grow. And actually, Kelly, you're going to hate this. I'm going to flip this around on you for a second because, TJ and I might be coming from a church staff perspective, but I feel like you've had some different church experiences where maybe a more unhealthy place and then coming into a place that's a little bit healthier. What do you think are some key differences that you've seen in those two spaces, maybe characteristics, qualities, values, whatever, that somebody might be able to identify with health and unhealth.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's two ways we can talk about this, right? The church or the pastoral relationship.
Yeah.
The church, I think one of the biggest differences is you walk into this environment and everybody's vision, and I think that comes from the bottom, from the top, and it trickles down to the bottom, but it's like, it's not about you. Yeah. It's about the people who are walking in those doors. Yes. And so you walk in and people are trying to make you feel loved on and welcome, and they're caring for you the minute you walk into that parking lot. And I didn't really understand, including our pastors, the fact that you guys were getting, bigger. You guys are out there every Sunday, every service, available. It doesn't feel like you're distant. It doesn't feel like you're further away. And so I think that I never understood it when I didn't understand it right when I walked in. But then you start to peel back the curtain and you're like, oh my God, this is because people have a vision that this is about something greater than myself or yourself, and it starts from the top. So there's just this vision of, we're here to love people, we're here to accept people, and we're here to point people towards Jesus. Right? And so it's not just on a wall,
Yes.
Everybody's welcome because nobody's perfect and anything is possible. I got that right? Okay.
You did great.
So I think that's a huge thing. But another thing now on more of a pastoral relationship, I'm gonna share kind of my experience. I think that I'm going to talk about you, Shayla, if I'm allowed to, that I went to you, and I think I was able to be so vulnerable and authentic and show so much junk of my life and, lead with my story, you too, TJ, and tell you all about where I come from and the things that I still deal with. And you accepted and loved on me when I thought that I was unlovable. And I think that was such a huge healing for me. And it's funny because I was corrected about 4 weeks ago from you on something that I will not divulge. But I was brought with love and said, hey, I need you to look at this. And I think that I was able to hear that so well because I know that there's such a vested interest in me being a better person and bringing me to another level and making me a better wife, leader, woman in general, that I think I accepted that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and so I think, but it came first because it came from, hey, I accept you. I'm going to put my time into you. I'm going to put my energy into you. I'm going to love on you. And I think that first there was healing, and then I was able to be steered in the right direction. So I think that acceptance, that vision of, those are the things that kind of I noticed for myself, who came from an unhealthy environment into a healthier one.
What do you think are some indicators of an unhealthy environment?
Am I being interviewed now? Okay.
Pretty much. I'm just trying. But I'm saying, we're coming out of a very different space. It's not a church that we've been a part of, as an attendee or a volunteer or whatever. So I think there's a lot of people that come into our church that have lived more in the space that you are in as opposed to a staff role,
Yeah, I think that one of the things that was unhealthy, like a real fast sign of it, in my old church, and I was part-time staff where I was before. So just, but I won't even speak of that point. I'll talk just about a member, is that you would walk in and we all had our groups. We all had our cliques.
Yeah.
We all had our cliques. Yeah. And so I didn't care who was walking in. I could care less. This is my environment. This is my home.
Very internal focus.
Yes, very focused on looking at myself. And so now I didn't know that was a sign of unhealth. But when I came here, I was like, wow, there are people who are actually talking to me. I mean, I would say hello, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make you feel welcome. I'm not going to go out of my way. You're the one coming into my environment. You find your own space. And I don't know that was intentional. Exactly.
Okay.
I don't know that was intentional, but I also think that there was a big I think here we do very well at honoring every position. So I think that there's value in every ministry, no matter what you do. I think that we understand that the place only functions because there's somebody who's willing to clean the bathroom. And, so
and their role is just as important as the person that's on the stage.
Exactly.
Might be more important.
Yeah, because no matter how good worship is, if that bathroom is jacked up, who's coming back to that? Nobody. So I think like that value system that we have. And then I also think this takes a little bit longer for you to realize. You have to actually get more involved. But I think that what you guys preach is what you guys live. And so that's not one of the signs that you see maybe the first minute you walk in because you don't know. But I think that that's true for everybody on staff and everybody that's at this church. So I think that there's an authenticity about how you portray the gospel and how you portray your lives and the vulnerability that I think is different from where I came from.
I know we have to close out. I think they gave us a signal, but I kind of want to just talk to the person that might be listening for a second, that you're in church hurt or you've come out of church hurt. That's a hard place to be, and it can be a place that kind of closes you off and isolates you. And it's kind of like this protective mode of I don't want to get hurt again, and like I feel like God has really graced us in a way at Coastal to be a place to heal. And it's really a big, deep part of our heart. And so I just want to encourage somebody that's out there that you're listening that's like, I'm just super closed off, but I'm showing up, just keep showing up. Just keep letting people love on you. Don't feel like I have to serve or I have to be involved or I have to do any of those things. Although those things will add value to your life, like just come and receive.
That's good.
We're going to go back to, we want something for you, not from you, and I hope that you find healing in that in a healthy place.
Yeah, agreed. And I think I want to finish off with two things really quickly. Pastor Randy is still somebody that's pastoring you, right?
Yep, he's still my pastor.
What do you think is like the hardest part of pastoring that he's always like, just to finalize, like what's kind of the hardest part of being a pastor?
Expectations.
Expectations is definitely the hardest part. As somebody that attends, you're not thinking about this from my perspective, but my perspective is everybody expects, for me to be perfect, funny, insightful, be available 24/7, to know their deepest, darkest needs, even though they've never expressed them.
You're having a bad day.
To
when
know
you walk
that that you're having a bad day when you've walked in, or you've experienced a loss, or you're struggling, or that it's the best day you've ever had. They're just everything that's out there, and that I can never make a mistake in my life. The moment, like I experienced it recently, I humanized myself on a weekend, and people couldn't handle it. Meaning, I showed them the realities of who I am, and I'm not perfect. I might hold the position of a pastor, but I'm just like everybody. I have struggles. I have desires. I have wants. I have ambitions. I have all of those. I'm no different than the average person, but the expectation is that I'm on this pedestal that I can never move myself from. And
you didn't say this, or you said this, or you didn't see me, or you didn't.
I mean, it's
hard.
That's why it's so important to have that figure kind of speaking things to you, and also somebody that you can be vulnerable with, right?
Oh yeah. And I mean, Pastor Randy is my pastor, but I have like 6 people in my life that I'm authentic with everyone,
but the
level of transparency is different based on the relationship. But with those 6, is everything.
Yeah, that's good.
They have permission to ask any and every question, and I will be 100% transparent there.
And do you have that, Shayla, too?
I mean, yes, yeah, I have. I don't think I have 6 people, but I have a few.
Shayla's like, I'm more private. I select my few. They're in my corner.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Lonely.
Yes.
It's hard to have that many. Like, very few people have that many people in their life.
Yeah.
That they can be that transparent with. I feel blessed that I have that amount of people that care that much about my life and my soul.
We might be that for other people.
Yeah, we're that for a lot of other people, but to be able to have that in your life is very rare.
Yeah. All right. And to end on a note, most awkward pastoral story. It's got to be a good one. Don't like...
Okay, so TJ and I at our old church, we shared a story one weekend about the fact that we had struggled with infertility. And a woman came up to us in the lobby. And so our infertility actually lies with TJ and not me. Mm-hmm. And so she came up to me and she said, "Hey, Shayla, I've just been thinking and praying about it. And I just want to let you know that my husband will donate his sperm so that you can have a baby." I'm like,
stop it. Stop.
I was like, well, I'm not going to have your husband's baby, but okay.
Were you there?
No, I told you about it later.
She told me about it.
What was your response?
I was like, wow, that was very generous.
No, I would have been like, you're so weird. That person should not be allowed in our church. No, I'm kidding.
They weren't in our church. It's from back, an old church.
But there was a woman that came, that was in our church on the front end, that was like, she came to me and she was like, "TJ, I will be your surrogate."
Oh, okay.
So we've had offers on both sides.
We've had
These
offers on
stories
both
are getting
sides.
more and more awkward, and I think it's time to
when we talk about that, just don't offer any solutions to our problem.
I have no backup comments at all. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week.
Have a great week.
Hey everybody, TJ here. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, share this with other people. I can't wait to see you next week.